set?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, welcome. Happy Sunday. This is your tribe, how to create powerful packages and compelling courses. And first of all, I want to say thank you to Mandy and the Love Dub community for putting this together. All the other presenters who I think are really having a vital and useful conversation in the fitness and yoga worlds. And thank you all those of you who have tuned in to listen and learn. So one of the things we're going to do in this course is I'm going to give you a lot of nitty-gritty details and strategies I use when putting together packages for private clients and also courses for small group or larger group events. And we're going to talk about several different kind of topics. So there's a little bit of an outline I'm going to run you through first so you know what's coming. The first thing we're going to talk about is the problem with single sessions and one-off workshops, why these are challenging to sustain over the long term. And Mandy, you can go to the next slide. And also kind of what's a better option. Also, we'll talk about the power of progress, how packages and courses can help you generate momentum and also sustainability for your teaching as well as for your students and clients. We'll talk about why you want to be a purple cow and how to identify what's unique about your offerings. And then we'll talk about specifically private session packages and some of the considerations for those and some of the ways to, before this webinar, I saw clients and it was a student of mine and her husband going over kind of like Yoga 101. And it was great to do that right before presenting this because I got to practice what I preach, right? And there are certain strategies for making people feel comfortable and also creating return customers or referrals through how you conduct the private session packages, how you talk about them, how you bring people into them, and then also how you keep them going. We'll talk about compelling course curriculums and how to communicate with your tribe. So instead of those one-off workshops that can be quite draining, you can have a series of workshops or even immersions and year-long programs. We'll also talk about pricing, and the pricing is an interesting piece because I feel like I've had a lot of trial by fire with that. And how I always think about it is that your worst case can be your best case. We'll talk about what that means. And also then there will be a little workbook, which will have some exercises, questions, and kind of lead you through even the construction of a course or private session packages. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty details, the one thing I want you to remember is I'm going to give you examples so you have real-life examples, things I actually use, not hypothetical, but that, if you were to come to be a client or to a course, you would see these things in play. And even though I use them, always work with what feels best for you. Feel free to adjust and just use these as a template or an exploration or a point of inquiry, and then really adapt whatever you're learning to suit your practice and your business and what I'm going to call your money shoes. So a little bit more about me and how I got here. So my name's Alison Smith, and I've been teaching yoga for 12 years. I've been a full-time teacher since 2011. One of the things that happened very early on in my career was I was waiting tables, and I never really thought that yoga, especially teaching, would lead anywhere. My teacher kind of pushed me into teaching. He actually handed over clients to me, which was really great. And the teaching business slowly started to build. And as my passion for teaching grew, one of the things I started doing was crunching the numbers. And I had no idea how to make ends meet with just teaching yoga in studios. So I had to get creative and basically had to think outside of the studio box and expand upon the private clients, expand into getting more students to become private clients, and then also small group programs, or unique offerings that were a little different than the one-off workshops or what studios might offer. So nowadays, 1/3 of my monthly income comes from studio classes, actually less than 1/3. And I wanted to provide that number because one of the most important things I ever learned, and again, I had a partner at the time who was a small business owner, very entrepreneurial, and a extraordinary guerrilla marketer. But he would always say, consider your classes getting paid to market yourself. And I think that's very important for teachers to hear, because if you're trying to make it work with just studio classes, you're going to run around like crazy. And it's extremely difficult. I would say it's close to impossible to make that work. So the sooner you start thinking outside of the box and trying to fill in those income gaps with things outside of the studio, I think the more quickly your teaching career can become sustainable. Nowadays, one of the things that happened in the last year is I co-opened a facility called The Space, and The Space is dedicated to providing literal space for teachers and trainers to see clients one-on-one and do small group programming, like what I'm going to give you an example of yoga club or a workshop series. And the reason this space got created was because I was always teaching private clients or courses in kind of random locations. Like I would end up teaching in Pilates studios or chiropractic studios or even like martial arts facilities. So sometimes to do these out of the box offerings, you actually have to get out of the studio box and may need to go to different facilities. And I do expect there will be more of this kind of fitness and yoga co-working, co-sharing space in the future. So that has become like a clubhouse for my tribe. And, having that type of like facility and also just being able to offer something different. Again, like think outside of the studio box, and that'll really be what this whole programming is about. Now, confession on this end in terms of packages and courses, really early on, especially with a partner who was an entrepreneur and a small business owner, I realized that I didn't like marketing. And the only thing I liked less than marketing were sales. So I started to develop strategies and structures that brought in students and clients, but also allowed me to feel more like I was inviting them or creating something that they already wanted that was filling a need. And then it didn't feel salesy or awkward to me. And I think when you craft your private session packages or courses that way, then it doesn't feel awkward or like you're selling or like you have to kind of be artificial, that you can be authentic, you can feel like you're doing a service to your clients and students. And one of the ways that I think that begins is by how you think about packages and programming and also how you construct them. The kind of key to that, we'll get more in depth with this soon, is that you want to create courses, workshops, private session packages based on what students are already asking for. And I'll take you through how I do that, how I think about that. But first, let's talk about the problem with one-off workshops and single private sessions. So one of the things to consider is when you offer a workshop, there's a tremendous amount of time that you will spend marketing. And I found that I would actually spend more time marketing than I would teaching the actual workshop sometimes. So because I was spending so much time with the marketing component, I was like, it would be way easier to offer a series of workshops, and it would actually take the same amount of marketing time. And Mandy, we can go to the next slide. So with a workshop series or a course curriculum, you can often do the same amount of marketing and behind the scenes work, but get 5 to 10 times the return. One of the funny things that I never expected from this was that sometimes people are more motivated to sign up for a series or a bigger offering than they are a single one-off workshop. For example, teacher trainings are frequently offered, and the amount of people who take teacher trainings or enroll in teacher trainings, even students who never want to be a teacher, is very, very high. In my opinion, that's because a lot of people just want to learn and grow. And as a community, I think we could become more creative in what we offer them to learn and grow. The other thing that happens is with teacher trainings, studios and teachers have gotten a little bit addicted to them because they have such a big kind of monetary payoff. However, once you graduate a certain group of trainees, then you have to find a whole new group of people to bring in the next time. Instead, what if you are offering programming that you never needed to go out and find a whole another 20 or 30 participants? But if the same people could stay with you course after course, year after year. That's something I did with Yoga Club. And it's been amazing because my most dedicated students do most of my programming. So you're not ever having to find a whole new kind of group. And you can also take that same group deeper and deeper and deeper into the thing that they love. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Yoga Club, and it's a case study. And I'm going to show you 2 different case studies, and we'll come back to them. Yoga Club was an idea I had because I had taught retreats, portions of teacher trainings, immersions, and one of the things I realized was that a lot of my students wanted to continue learning, but there wasn't a really good option or structure for them to do so. So Yoga Club became the answer to that, and basically, it started out as an experiment, like most things, and it's a series of 3-hour workshops. We can go to the next slide. 3-hour workshops. And in the beginning, I did it as like a series of 6 workshops. And then we would have some type of book that we were studying along with the workshop series. Then I'd kind of teach in tandem with the book, and not like actually lecture on the book. The book was kind of like homework. But to have an asana practice or some type of yoga teaching that was tied into the book we were reading. For example, we've studied the Bhagavad Gita this past year. Before that, we've done the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, the Yamas and the Niyamas, the Chakra, things like that. But by far, the most exciting thing about Yoga Club is that there have been people who have been in that program for 3 years now. And instead of, again, graduating a whole group and getting another kind of set of students, it's actually been a long-term process of growth and evolution that's made all of us closer and also really expanded and enhanced the community. This type of offering, I also will talk about this later, but I used a lot of educational language around it. So I would say it was, in the beginning, it was spring semester and fall semester. And again, a series of 6 workshops. But over the summer, everyone wanted to continue. So then it became spring, summer, and fall. And then this past year, I offered it as a year-long program, which was wonderful because, again, I had to market it 1 time, not 3 times. And a lot of times it's the marketing and promoting that's actually the most exhausting part of putting together any type of workshop or educational program. Now, the next example and case study is the Attune and Align. This is actually a program that one of my friends, Marissa Lavallee, does. And I wanted to give something different as an example. Marissa's a yoga teacher, but she also has done catering. She's in nutrition school. And this particular workshop series for her is like a woman's mentoring and wellness group. So there are live in-person workshop series, as well as like an online component, some coaching components. She has guest teachers. So again, it's something that has more life to it than a single workshop, also more longevity for the students as well as for the teacher. A couple other examples, other than these case studies, immersions, which could be weekend long, 6 months, 50 hours. Those are common structures for immersions. And immersions could be just an opportunity for students to deepen their practice, to, learn home practice. even to just get people together for a whole weekend could be classified as an immersion. Monthly workshop series, then maybe in the workshop series you're focusing on different pose categories. Say in January you do arm balancing, in February you do back bends, in March you do inversions, in May you do forward bends. Whatever it is, you can break these series up into things like structures like that. And again, it gives people continuity and opportunity to dive more fully and deeply into the practice. Themes are another great way to structure workshops, whether the theme is something like a technique that people want to master, or is a series of techniques that would help them get better at the things they love, whether it's around some type of philosophy or book or program of study or perspective. It could even be something that's a little more tied to your personality. Like I've seen people do courses with aromatherapy or essential oils or meditation, or like with Marissa, she's tying in the nutrition component. So again, you can take this type of course concept and expand it. So you're taking people on a journey, you're giving them more of an experience, but also most importantly, in terms of business and career sustainability, you're doing something that'll take off that kind of boulder of marketing. And instead of always pushing it up to the hill for just one single event, it starts to roll down the hill with momentum. And you're also going to make a bigger impact in your students' lives. Now, quick little some math equations here, right? Because this is all good in a theoretical level, but just some examples with numbers. If you do a single workshop, and let's say the single workshop is $40, and just for the sake of ease of math, you have 10 students, then the revenue from that workshop would be $400. Series of 3 workshops at the same price, $120, 10 students, now you're talking $1,200 in revenue. Something like an immersion or a course or a longer study program, let's say $1,000, again, 10 students, now you're talking $10,000. And the amount of marketing that's put into these, in my experience, is relatively the same. What has been, again, surprising is that sometimes, because people are really looking for more opportunities to learn and grow, I find that students are sometimes more likely to sign up for a series or a longer program of study, and it often seems like a lot less work than the one-off workshops. I think also because it's seen as a special event or special unique offering, that adds its own momentum too. So, one of the things that adds that level of momentum and also, I guess, encouragement for students to participate is that with limited time, you get limited results. So with the longer programs, longer offerings or packages or courses, you have more time with your students to guide their practice and experience, or to guide their progress. If we're talking about personal training or dance or any other kind of movement or art form or wellness business. Especially with like private clients or one-on-one work, with only a single session, you can't expect much. The funny thing is, like, no one would expect to learn Spanish in a single class, or be pain free after like one PT visit, to feel completely loose and relieved after one massage, or to master meditation from a single sit. So this idea that you need consistency and more time to learn and grow is something people understand. But I think in the wellness community, sometimes we don't communicate that clearly. And part of our jobs is to actually give clients and students the structure they need for results. And the packaging of private sessions, the programming for courses can actually create more structure and support, so that not only is it supporting you as a teacher or a wellness provider, but it's actually giving your students and clients more of what they really want, really need and often what they're searching for, which is why people tend to sign up for teacher trainings, but there's a lot more we could be offering them. This longer time period also gives you progress, and there is a power in progress. People stick with something when they see progress. If they don't see progress, it's really hard for them to come back or to continue. And again, the role of teacher, trainer, coach, or guide is to not only to teach the person whatever you're teaching them, but then also to help them navigate the terrain of the journey into whatever they want to learn. So the question I would invite you to ask yourself now is, what structure or systems do you have in place to help your clients or students see their progress and stay motivated? And I think the answer to this question can be quite varied because, for example, structure can be something like you have a certain amount of packages and maybe you congratulate them when they get to the end of a certain package or the end of a program or the end of a course. But also structures and systems can be things like, helping them recognize their own progress within a pose or a movement or a technique or the amount of weight they're using or lifting. Or, like, one of the things I do a lot with my clients is one of the ways we measure progress is with the amount of pain they're in. So, using like a pain scale or using something like on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel on a scale? And then what percentage of relief have you gotten? So, even like being able to point out and help them recognize their own progress is very important when we're working to keep people motivated, engaged with whatever process they're in. And the funny thing is, you're always in the body you have. So you sometimes tend to see, I feel like students and clients, and I know this of myself as a student and client, we tend to see our progress last, right? Because we're always tend to be focused on our own limitations and restrictions. So then the goal and part of the, I think, role of teacher, trainer, coach, or guide is, again, to help people see their own progress, their own growth, especially when it's something that might be difficult or frustrating. Another idea of structure and systems to help students, clients to see progress is any type of home practice. Like, I do home practice MP3s for my clients, but maybe you send them resources. It could be things like a meal plan, but other supports you have around them to keep them engaged with the process that they're in, whatever that is. In terms of courses, one of the things with Yoga Club is there's like recommended readings and worksheets that they can do at home that, again, keep them engaged with the process. When students notice progress, they are likely to stick with something. And as we all know, consistency is key. And the more consistently your students and clients practice or do the whatever they're involved in, the more quickly they will notice progress. This becomes like a recycling and refreshing loop. And when you build programs or courses that require commitment, you'll naturally attract students and clients who are more dedicated and want to go deeper. And you're also asking them to put more time, energy, and resources into it. And it's one of those funny equations, which the more people put into it, often the more they get out of it. When I first started teaching private clients, one of the tricky things was I always wanted it to be affordable. And while I think that's very noble, A, you have to support yourself, but B, you also have to ensure that the person is valuing what they're doing too. So it's, so ironic that when I charged the lowest prices, I would have the most cancellations, the most no-shows, because people just didn't really value what they were doing. And so the price you put on it, what you ask of them, in terms of time, energy, resources will also influence what they get out of it. When you can give students, clients progress and results, they become more motivated, more consistent, they get more progress and results, and then they start to talk about you. And when people start to talk about you, they become your best source of marketing. And this is what Seth Godin calls a purple cow. Seth Godin is a wonderful educator. He would consider himself a marketer. I would consider him more of a social scientist in a lot of ways. And his idea of a purple cow is that when you want to be something people can remark upon. So he gives the example, if you're driving down the road and you're expecting to see normally colored cows, and then all of a sudden you saw a purple cow, you would tell everyone you knew for the next 10 years about the purple cow you saw. So when something's unique, when something excites people, they talk about it. And when you're able to give your students and clients remarkable results, progress, consistency, you're able to help them achieve their goals, then they start to remark about you. And then instead of always feeling like you're pushing this boulder of promotion up the hill, it starts to roll down with more speed. And also then when people come in and they've been referred by someone who's worked with you, there's already a level of built-in trust that's really lovely. And some of the clients I have are like 5th generation clients, which is crazy to think about. So it's like a student referred someone who referred someone who referred someone who referred someone. And that's what this idea of a purple cow and being remarkable is all about, is that you're able to kind of generate that momentum from your work and your currently existing clients. So this will be part of your worksheet, but then I invite you again to consider now, what is remarkable about you and your offerings? Like, what are you known for? Why do people come to your classes, sessions, or purchase your services? And also, what makes you different from other service providers? I believe in the beginning it can take some time for clarity around this to evolve, especially for newer teachers, trainers, or movement teachers. You almost have to find your signature or your essence as a teacher or your voice as a teacher. Once you find this, and I'm going to say one more thing about that. Sometimes these things come so natural to you that they're hard for you to identify what's unique. So if you don't know, and even if you do, it's wise to ask students, clients, and friends and family. And I think when I do that, I interview a few students or clients every year, I'm always surprised at some of what they say. Again, because I don't think about it, because it comes so naturally to me. Once you're more clear on kind of your essence, your signature as a teacher, then you can actually start to do it on purpose. Because a lot of times we're doing the things that come naturally to us naturally, but you can almost exaggerate it or enhance it or embellish it to make it more clear that that's what you stand for, that's your style. And I think this is what really differentiates and creates leaders in the fitness and wellness realms versus people who are just good at what they do. So one of the things that comes with being a purple cow is, are you comfortable standing out from the crowd? Because once you're really owning what you do, what you stand for, your essence as a teacher or trainer, and once you become more remarkable, it does not mean that everyone will like you, and that can be great for your business too. So sometimes there's this moment of being uncomfortable because in a way you are, again, standing out, you're owning what you do. You may almost have to kind of feel like you're planting your flag, you're staking your claim on a certain territory or concept or idea or style. And one of the funny things that I found is, even if people don't like your particular style or kind of what you decide you stand for, when they remark about it, it can still be some of the best marketing for you. For example, one of the things I'm known for as a teacher is like anatomy and alignment and education, which sometimes when people don't like that, how they refer to me is quote unquote too technical. However, even though they don't like that, if they say that to someone who's looking for anatomy, alignment, and education, that person is excited. And then the remark of why someone might not find themselves to be my ideal student, they will still direct people who would like my style to me. So, with this idea of being remarkable, got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, standing out from the crowd, and in a way owning kind of whatever space you decide you're going to occupy. Here are some examples. Again, this comes from my personal teaching of what I do to exaggerate and in a way embellish what I've decided my teaching will be about. And these are all things that support my teaching career. So it's not like I don't think these are right for everyone or that everyone should do them. This is just an example of what's worked for me and how I've been leaning into those strengths over the years. For example, I emphasize anatomy, alignment, and therapeutics. This includes like I'll bring bones into classes, take my iPad and show people pictures of muscles. There's a short teaching at the beginning of class, whether we're working on an alignment principle, a pose, some piece of anatomy, a myth, or a story. I will give examples and talk about clients during classes because private clients are a big part of my work and my teaching perspective. And then I'll also use themes from other programs. Like if I'm teaching an immersion or yoga club, I will talk about them during classes. So it's another way to kind of add momentum to other programs you might be offering, but also that there's more education and learning going on beyond the classroom. Now, things that I don't do, and again, I don't think these are bad or wrong, just not my style. And over the years, I've learned to draw clear boundaries around what I do and don't do in order to take a stand in and be more of a leader and also be clear and consistent about who I am as a teacher. So, for example, I don't do chanting in classes or play the harmonium, even though I do a mantra practice every morning. So while that's important to me personally as a yoga practitioner, it's not a part of my teaching, and I don't feel it needs to be. I don't teach or sub classes that don't match my skill set or style. For example, years ago, like I used to get requests from friends who were faster paced vinyasa teachers, and I don't take requests anymore unless I feel like I will be a good fit to that community. When you're a new teacher gaining experience, you may say yes more often, but then over time, especially as you're trying to establish like a clear, remarkable reputation, you might become more discerning over which classes you decide to put yourself in, what community, what style, and also will you be able to authentically represent yourself in that environment. I don't play loud music, fast-paced flow, or turn up the heat. The kind of funny thing about this is like I get requests for that, and that's been interesting. Students have said over the years like, oh, I really like your class, but I want to go faster, or I want to do more poses, or I'd like it if there was more music. And I think as a teacher, and especially as someone who like, there's an emphasis in studios with numbers. So it can turn into some people pleasing, but you have to be clear on your boundaries and what's going to support this kind of bigger vision for your career. And so with those students, sometimes I've just said, I'm not that type of teacher. This is what I do. I'm about alignment and education. And if you want more of that faster paced flow or, more music, there are plenty of other teachers. Let me give you some examples, or let me tell you about some teachers I like who do that. Lastly, I don't teach yin or restorative classes again because I don't have a good skill set in that arena. And I've made that mistake in the past, right? So with the don't do's, part of what that is making sure I'm clearly and consistently representing myself in a way that will support my business. And then you start to feel solid, more confident but also students start to get a clear sense of who you are and what you're all about, and that can continue to attract your tribe and also make you someone who other people find you remarkable, and then they bring other students, clients, friends, coworkers to you. So, what are your do's and don'ts? What do you believe is at the essence of your teaching or training style? What makes you stand out from the crowd? How do you stay clear and consistent with your offerings? And I think these are good questions to revisit on a regular basis, especially if you're in a point of transition. Maybe you move to a new place, you're thinking of taking on something new, or entering a new studio, or offering new programming. Once you're more clear and consistent on your do's and don'ts, and you lean into your strengths, you become more flavorful, more remarkable, and then again, your clients and students become more your best marketing. The other thing to consider is that, like, when you're clear and consistent about who you are and what you're offering, because if people are going to talk about you, they need to be clear on who you are and what you're offering. And if you don't know and you're not clear, they're definitely not going to be clear either. So that becomes part of how you grow your tribe. And a talking tribe is a growing tribe. And as you develop this tribe, you have more and more people who want to go deeper and farther with you. And that deeper and farther can be private sessions or courses. So we're going to go a little bit into private sessions now. One of the things that happened super early on in my teaching was, like, when people would come to a single session because they wanted to learn something, and as they were walking out the door, I would feel heartbroken because I felt like I was letting them walk away with more questions than answers. And there's also no way for me to ensure that they retained the information or knowledge or progress they had made in the session, because I didn't know if they were coming back or not. I hadn't set up the structure to encourage them to be consistent or to ensure their progress and growth. So with private sessions, one of the things I would say is, and this personal training, I think, is much better at encouraging consistency. I see a lot less of that in the yoga community, but I think that 3 to 4 sessions minimum is the packet. I use a 4-session package as kind of my minimum. And that way you can review, refine, and also have a plan of action for your students, because it's difficult to get anything solid done in a single session. Another way to encourage progress, consistency, but also to enroll in packages is to provide resources with those packages. Whatever this means, like often what I do for my clients is home yoga MP3s. So during the private session, we will actually record some type of mini practice. It's usually only 12 to 20 minutes, but it's something they can take home and do on their own and also keep learning and growing. I've also done the same thing, like MP3s with notes, so they could remember the notes before they come to classes. I think this could also be, resources could be stretched to maybe things you add on as bonuses to your packages, or as kind of like auxiliary elements. Like if you're a personal trainer, maybe it's something to do with nutrition. If you teach some other movement modality, maybe it's videos or instructional materials that go along with whatever they're learning in the private session. How to encourage enrollment. So when you're trying to get someone to move from maybe just like, hey, I want to learn a little bit more and maybe do a private session or do a single session, you can encourage enrollment by making the package enticing with resources like the MP3s, any auxiliary material. Also, a dollar amount discount is what I use. So if it's $10 or $20 off per session, like the drop-in price is, say, $140, and then the package rate for 10 is $120 per session. That adds up to significant savings quickly. The other way to encourage enrollment in a package versus single session could be offering some type of bonus session, like if you buy 10, you get one, this type of thing, or you get a something a little bit different. For example, I do semi-private classes, and with like 4 months of semi-private classes, then the students get a private session. And one of the things with that is that also encourages people to maybe invest or participate in other offerings you have. For me as a teacher, it gives me some one-on-one time with people to make a bigger impact in their practice. So then we can clear up any injuries or stuff they've got going on. They continue to participate in these small group classes. So it really becomes a way to serve them, and also as something that makes it enticing to sign up for a several-month program. When you're presenting any type of packages, one thing to consider is people like choices, but not too many choices, right? Too many becomes overwhelming, an overwhelming amount of options. It's just like when you go to the store and you kind of can't make any decisions because there's just too many things to choose from, or online shopping. You can look for some pair of shoes for like 6 months just because they're literally endless options. So I recommend like 3 to 4 packages. In the past, like 3 years ago, the packages I offered were actually much more complex. I think as in the last couple years, I've simplified them simply because I feel like people's attention span is much less. So the 3 options I offer now are a drop-in, a package of 4 sessions, and then packages of 10 sessions. So again, choices are important because people feel like they have options, they can do what's right for them. Not too many choices or it becomes overwhelming and they might just walk away. The other thing to encourage enrollment is explain the process. Explain what to expect during the first session. What's the intervals between sessions? Are they coming weekly? Are they coming twice a week? Are they coming once a month? Scheduling in advance is very important with enrollment. People are more likely to keep an appointment they already have scheduled than if they have to contact you or do some type of like run around to get scheduled. So these are all strategies to encourage the consistency and commitment that lead to progress and also lead to that momentum of being remarkable, changing lives, being of service to both your clients and your students and your career. Some kind of simple things, but I think important things to say about working with people is, calm, comfortable environment. No matter what you're doing one-on-one, it can be very vulnerable. And sometimes people are really face-to-face with their limitations and things that are difficult. My partner, Roberto, is a personal trainer, and it's always fun when I go do personal training or strength training with him because I always feel so vulnerable and sometimes so frustrated because it's just not my domain. And when I go to do private sessions with my teacher, again, I call it like the hot seat, but it makes me very compassionate when students come in and they can feel very vulnerable. So the first thing, make them feel comfortable, whatever that means. Maybe it's telling jokes, explaining the process to them. I often do like a check-in with my clients that allows them to kind of tell me what's going on. I do consultations with new clients just on the phone, but usually because people might be pretty nervous about maybe some physical concerns they have or limitations. And if they get that out, feel like someone heard them, then they feel much more comfortable when they actually come in and you can get to work. When you're seeing people one-on-one, super important to be calm, settled, and ready when they arrive. Things happen, but especially if you're meeting people for the first time, don't rush in at the last moment. For best results, be in an environment where they and you can focus. I often get requests to come to people's houses, which I don't do, largely because sometimes that then makes it tricky to, you kind of end up being somewhere in between a guest and a service provider. So sometimes people want to offer you tea or food, which is very kind, But, if you need to get somewhere, you don't want to be there for a long period of time, it can be quite awkward. And I know a lot of teachers who sometimes go to people's houses because they don't have a place to see their clients. I'd say better to find a place where you can see clients where they and you can be focused. And a lot of times, if you go to people's house for something too, then they're like putting the dishes away, letting the dog out, messing with this, messing with that. I believe that people get better results when they're in a place where they can focus and where there's like clear roles present too. And then last, like make the practice or the training session personal and meaningful. Get clear on people's goals and what they're after. What do they want from whatever you're offering them? One of the questions I ask in a consultation is what is the best thing that could happen from your private sessions? And I think that idea of what's the best thing that can happen, allows people to be, it doesn't say goals. It's nothing that they feel like they need to put in like a bullet point list. It's just, allows them to be a little bit whimsical. And then also I have some great insight about what they want and what they're after. I have a client who's like, I don't like Shavasana. Great. We don't have to do Shavasana. I'm not going to make him kind of lay and do that because I think he should. You want to customize it, create it to the individual, and also align it to their goals and what's going to make the practice meaningful, successful for them. Now, with private sessions and one-on-one work, especially, I think that sometimes, and this is a little bit yoga specific, but I would ask the question, will someone pay for private sessions if it's exactly like a class? And I think that some people will because of they want a private class or at a certain time. But I also think that most private clients actually need a special skill set that you may or may not have learned in any training, right? It takes much more kind of interpersonal skills and usually the ability to recognize misalignments and work with injuries, adapt poses, or to adapt certain movements to people's bodies. So if you need to sharpen your skills in the arena of one-on-one work, I take one seminar or workshop a year. And I usually take it on something that's a little outside of my realm of expertise. For Mandy, can you go to the next slide? So, for example, I will take workshops that maybe have more of a body work background, like neurokinetic therapy or like something from the anatomy trains and fascia schools or, T.S. Little. But so I kind of continually sharpen my skills to work with people one-on-one. And the one-on-one work, especially if you are in the group class hamster wheel, the one-on-one work can be so powerful because you have so much more flexibility with your scheduling. It's often a much higher dollar amount in terms of like pay than public classes. You can do them back to back. You can get them on a weekly basis, so there's a lot of logistics that you take out of the equation with private sessions that exist within the public class domain. So they can be a wonderful way to build your career and actually make it more sustainable over the long run. Now, another thing that can help build your career are courses. So this goes back to the idea of instead of one-off workshops, to have something that's asking for a longer-term commitment and also a bigger investment. And imagine this. I think one of the things that can get intimidating about courses is that, again, the sales and marketing component. But instead of sales or marketing, what if you were inviting students to participate in something? And instead of having something that they may or may not want, what if it was something they needed or something they had already asked for? And that's always how I build courses and curriculum is what are my students asking for? Like, what are common questions that they have? What are challenges that they have? And also, like, do they have a wish list? Mandy, can you go to the next slide for me? So, that's one of the ways I start the process of thinking of a course or curriculum is what are students asking? The other kind of element of that is what do they need that they might not know to ask for? Like, for example, do you see any gaps in their knowledge? Is there something everyone in the community is struggling with that then you could offer a workshop series or a course in? Or what do you have to offer that would help the whole community grow? Or do you have any type of knowledge that would help empower and accelerate or really connect and inspire that community? Again, the case study of Yoga Club. Yoga Club was formed from a very clear, very direct question of how do I get more of this on a regular basis? And students were asking that after retreats because they couldn't take off as much time as they wanted to go on retreats. So then kind of the slogan for Yoga Club became like on the regular and close to home, that they didn't have to travel, and it was a way to go deeply into their practice on a more regular and consistent basis. So that was something people were asking, and it took a couple of years for me to kind of formulate the structure around it. But then it was like, hey, you guys, remember when after a retreat you asked for how do I get more of this on a regular basis? Well, this is it. This is the answer to the question you have. So again, it's not like I need to convince them that they need something. It's an answer to a question and an inquiry they're already making. The same with the case study of Attune and Align, which is, again, Marissa Lavallee's program. This was her answer to the question of how do I get the support I need to make some things in my life a reality? And this was something Marissa experienced personally too, that like she had these big dreams and plans on the back burner, but she felt like she didn't have any support to make them happen. So then she created Attune and Align. It's a workshop series, but it's also got coaching, the online component to help women who are asking that question, how do I get the support I need to make things happen in my life, and to provide an answer for them. Other examples of offerings, I teach these Saturday classes. Students wanted weekend classes. I didn't want to commit to every Saturday, so then I do them once a month, make them a longer class, kind of a special event, and offer it as a series. Yoga for athletes, again, that was something people were asking for their husbands or their partners, so created a class that's like yoga for athletes but code for yoga for stiff guys who are kind of scared of yoga. Bandas, I teach a lot of Banda program again because students always had questions about it, and it was something that was really unclear for a lot of people, and it could easily be tied to the deep core and solve a lot of the low back issues and sensitivities I saw in students, but also helped them with poses that they often asked about. Handstand is one of the most common requests I have, and there's only like handstand workshops are fun, but I was like, hey, if you learn this, you can do handstands and all the other things you want to do. Other things I'll do in terms of like offerings is like I offered a fascia course this past year, partially because it was something I was really inspired by, and it was kind of a buzzword in the community. So you can use buzzwords or points of inquiry or things you're really interested in too to kind of create these course offerings that then you can invite people to instead of feeling like you're selling them or convincing them. Now, keys to communication with these compelling courses is use words and phrases that your students will understand. Sometimes I think we use words that are complicated, whether that's Sanskrit or anatomical terms, or maybe terms that are super industry specific. And when it's easier to understand, I think it's easier for students to something that feels overwhelming, the whole offering is going to feel overwhelming. Another key to communication is address their questions, needs, desires, challenges, and frustrations in all of their copy. So the questions they have, or the frustrations they have, that should be a part of how you're talking about this course. For example, like with the bandhas, I may mention that in a class and then say, if you want to learn more about the bandhas, if you wanted to, develop more of a practice with that, then this offering is coming up soon. So you kind of use what they've already told you they want or need or are interested in to then communicate how the offering will then answer that question or solve that challenge. I'm a big advocate also of using education-based language, especially when you're offering more in-depth programs or courses. So use the word course and semester and series versus workshop. Also curriculum instead of just an outline, and communicate the curriculum to them. If you're asking people to make a big investment in something and to learn and grow, then use language that will also encourage them to learn and grow. And then instead of like buy or sign up, I'll use things that are more education based, like register or enroll. Another key to communication is I recommend using personal emails and in-person communication. That is how I fill most of my programming. Talking to people again, being like, hey, remember when you asked that question? Here's what I'm offering to answer that. I think you'd love it. I think sometimes we can hide behind, social media or newsletters and things like that. And what's really effective is when you have a community, you have a tribe who knows you, loves you, trusts you, and then you talk to them directly. It's kind of simple and old school, but I think also really potent and powerful. And sometimes with all the fancy tech, I think we forget about how raw and vulnerable, but potent and powerful that can be. The worst case can be your best case. So this is a little bit about pricing, and this applies for private sessions, but especially for courses or series. When deciding upon pricing, I will choose a price based on what I call my worst case scenario. So like, for example, I would pick a number that is my worst case scenario where the program is still profitable and sustainable. And maybe that number is 8. It's kind of a random number, but I use that sometimes. And then if they're 12 or 20, that's great. But to me, this alleviates a lot of pressure of enrollment. And then I can be a little bit more relaxed and spacious around the marketing and promoting and for a program. Also, when you're pricing your offerings, I think it was Danielle Laporte's this funny thing about, do you fit into your money shoes? And what she meant here is that the price you charge, should feel a little bit sassy and bold, and you should feel good, but it should not be too uncomfortable. It's like shoes that you may love, they look great, but then you can't even walk in them, right? It doesn't work. And if you are charging a price because you think you should, but it's so uncomfortable that you can't even really ask for it, or you can't engage with it, it's just too much. You don't fit into that yet. If you're going to charge a premium price or high price, make sure you're offering a premium service, or you feel really confident asking for that or engaging with that. And then again, kind of the flip side of that is always charge an amount that supports you and respects your time and energy output. I put a picture here of these Stuart Weitzman shoes, and I have a pair like this, and I love them, right? And they're not like the fanciest or most exciting shoes, but you feel good when you're wearing them, and you can walk in them. And kind of that idea of money shoes is feel good, feel bold. Maybe it makes you a little bit scared when you charge a certain price, a little bit nervous, but butterflies, not bats. And again, still able to walk, still able to really kind of feel good about what you're charging. And and then again, run that number against the worst case scenario so that you again can have a successful, sustainable program. And also you're not getting stuck teaching something that you're losing money on, or you're not making enough on, and then it starts to drain you. Because if you're feeling drained or strained by something you're offering, it's going to be really hard to be remarkable and give the people in that program a powerful experience. It for the big pieces of content. Thank you for showing up, tuning in, taking the time to build your business and learn these types of really, really, really important skills. You'll receive a copy of these slides and also some worksheets, a little kind of workbook with questions from the presentation. Remember that your current students and clients or people you've worked with in the past are really your best resource for ideas and inspiration about marketing. Always feel free to reach out to me. I love to get geeky and talk about things like this. And the worksheets and workbook that you have, and they're part of these slides too, they'll take you through like kind of the questions I would ask like a mentee about, when they're planning a workshop. And there'll be one about being remarkable, like what are you known for, and then how does that lead to ideas or inspiration for classes or courses. Would your students want to be invited? Like, is this something they would be excited about and eager to sign up for? And I think that's a really important conversation piece, because if you to invite them and they're excited about it, it's going to feel wonderful. And one of the things to consider with that is like, what are they going to gain, achieve, feel, or experience from this offering? And then also strategies about how to communicate with them about that. And then even when I'm planning something like this, I will end up listing clients that I'm then going to reach out to, or who I think this would be a good fit for. That helps me write the copy for my courses and plan the curriculum, as well as actually to have people to talk to about enrollment and registration. Best case and worst case scenario, there's a worksheet here that'll take you through some of the numbers and how to wrap your head around that. And then the private session process will take you through some questions and considerations for putting together the private session packages. So that is it for me, and I'll ask for questions in here in just a moment, but also a reminder that there's more September 22, and Allie will be presenting on the following Sunday, which is September 29. So again, thank you all for being here. Thank you, Mandy and LoveDub, for setting this up. I really appreciate it. I'm honored and delighted to share this.